everybody. Welcome back to the podcast. Today we have Dennis Kononov. Dennis, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good. I'm feeling great. I had a little sore throat, but I think I'm going to be fine today. I have my tea with me, so I think I'll be okay.
That's good. I'm happy. So basically, what we're going to be talking about today is fasting.
Yeah, we're going to be talking about fasting today. I'm excited.
I remember Dennis, I came into Applebee's, and Dennis came up to me, he was really ecstatic. He's like, man, I really want to do an episode on fasting. And I'm like, yes, because I was waiting to get the youth pastor on the podcast for the first time. And now we're doing it.
So I'm a guest.
You're a guest, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah, you're an honored guest.
All right.
So I just want to start off by asking, what is fasting? Like, what is the definition of fasting? What is it for a Christian?
Fasting is really just abstaining from food, right? It's just when you go for a prolonged period of time without eating. And I would say for a Christian, fasting, this is my definition, it's a physical practice that gains spiritual results. So in fasting, what you're really doing is you're abstaining from food in order to gain something from God, something that God has for us, and you're basically calling on God. And fasting is just a method where you say no to something good in order to get something greater from God. So in a nutshell, that's what fasting is.
Okay, that's interesting. What are the different kinds of fasting? Because a lot of times we read the Bible and then we'll be in the book of Daniel, and then there's something about a Daniel's fast. Okay. And then there's certain things that you're allowed to eat, and then there's just regular fasting that we think of, which is just water. Yeah.
So there's all sorts of fasts. There's a water fast where you drink only water. There's a Daniel's fast where you don't eat carbs. You eat fruits and vegetables. You don't eat any sweets. There's different lengths of fast. So you can do a half a day fast. You could do 40-day fast and more. So there's all sorts of different fasts, and I would say that the different fasts can fit different people, different times, whatever is right for you. So there's all sorts of different kinds of fasts.
What would you say? Okay. What is the fast that you normally go with?
So I like I like to do the 1-day fast, just the 24 hours. I've done different kinds of fasts. I've done a 5 days, 3 days. I've done a 20-day fast, up to 20 days.
Sheesh.
So I've done Daniel's fast, which I'm not too particular of. They're very difficult to do. But I would say just a 1-day fast is something that I normally practice. I do it about once a week. We have youth service on Fridays, so on Fridays is when I fast, just to kind of prepare myself, prepare my spirit for God. So yeah.
Gotcha. And you kind of touched on this before, but I wanted to kind of get into what is the ultimate goal of fasting as a Christian? What is your goal as a Christian? If, let's say, we're in the youth and you call for a fast, why are we calling for a fast?
So any fast, there's a purpose. There's some kind of a goal that you want to receive something from God. So fasting is you're not twisting God's arm in order to get something from God, or in order to force it. You're basically asking for God to give you what He originally intended for you to have. So fasting is it can break strongholds, demonic strongholds. Fasting can help with sins. If you have some kind of addiction or some kind of bad habit, some kind of secret sin that you want to get rid of, fasting is a great way to do that. Fasting just gives us what God already intended us to have. But the problem is, the reason why we don't have some of the things that God wants us to have is because of our flesh, because of the devil, because of the world around us, and we're in a spiritual battle, right? And so fasting is a powerful weapon that we have where we fight in the spirit. And that's what fasting is about. It's a fight to get something that belongs to us. So I think I answered the question.
Yeah, you answered it. I think for one thing, for myself personally, a fast is Like, I think the strongest my fast has been is when I've done it with people, and especially when it's like a brother in Christ who I'm like, hey, I don't know if I could do this myself, because maybe you probably do it yourself, but from someone who's not like as strong of a strong-willed or disciplined, I usually like to ask like someone else, like maybe David. I'll go up to David. I'm like, hey, can we just fast for like a day or two? And he's like, yeah, sure. And it kind of helps me.
Yeah.
But I think fasting takes a lot of discipline, and I think for younger people it's a little bit harder, especially like in this culture right now where it's just like you eat so much food.
Yeah.
That's a problem for me. It's like we go to fast food a lot. Sundays we eat out like almost every time, and Fridays too. So there's always like a lot of different food that you eat. Right. And it's like it's so hard for me to discipline myself.
Yeah. And that's what fasting does, is it gives you the ability to say no to yourself. It teaches you how to have self-control, because when you fast, what you're really doing is you're saying no to yourself, right? You're saying no to your flesh. You're saying no to your desires that you have, maybe sinful desires. And fasting, let me ask you a question. Have you ever had this feeling where you want to serve God in a way where like you want to do more for God, but you don't find the desire to do that? Have you ever had a situation or like you come to the realization that I want to seek God more, I want to know God more, but I don't feel like I have that desire in my heart. Like I don't feel like my heart is like wants God.
Oh yeah, for sure. I think like one example I give a lot is I'll be on like the first time I joined the worship team, it was really easy. But then when you do it more and more and more, just like anything, like probably for you, when you do more and more in sermons, then you're just like, oh, this is starting to feel like a job.
Right.
And then that's the same feeling I get.
So yeah. So what fasting does is it breaks through that. So when you come to a point where you feel like, man, I don't have that desire for God like I used to, or I don't feel like my heart wants to see God. The reason is because we have a flesh, right? We have a sinful nature.
Yeah.
And the sinful nature causes us to not seek God. The Bible says that either we have our flesh dominating our spirit or our spirit is dominating our flesh. Either our flesh has our spirit in a cage and it's, making sure it doesn't get out, or our spirit is dominating and it is in control. So what fasting does is it gives you power to kill your flesh, right? That's what fasting does. Is it gives your spirit power to kill the flesh and to have dominion over the flesh. So when you're fasting, what you're really doing is you're training yourself in godliness. You're training yourself to say no to your flesh, to say no to your sinful desires and your habits. So it's a powerful weapon. And I think for those that are lacking that discipline, I would say you have to fast. And I would say this, I would look at it from this perspective, because some people say that fasting is for like the Christian elite or like the leaders or if you preach, then you fast, or you're a pastor, so you have to fast. Fasting is for everybody, right? Fasting is for everyone. And I believe if you're a Christian, you should be fasting. Why? Because it gives you the power that you need to do what God wants you to do. It helps you. Without fasting, it's very difficult to be in control of your own emotions, desires. It gives you control of that. So I would say I would encourage every believer to fast. It's not just for a special group of people; it's for everybody.
Yeah. Actually, this goes on to my next question. And you said that if you're a Christian, you should fast. But my question is it required for a Christian to fast?
No, it's not required.
Okay.
But I would say that Jesus assumed that we would. So in the Bible, Jesus said, when you fast, right? So he didn't say if, he said, when you fast. And at one point, the Pharisees came up to him and to his disciples, and they said, they came up to him and they said, how come our disciples, how come we fast and your disciples don't fast? And Jesus said that one day, let me read. He said, this is in Matthew chapter 9, verse 14. Jesus said to them, "Can the wedding guests mourn as long as the bridegroom is with them? The days will come when the bridegroom is taken away from them, and then they will fast." So basically, Jesus is saying, when I'm going to be gone, then my disciples will fast, right? So it's not a requirement, but I think when you read the New Testament, we see that it's assumed that we would, right? The church, the early church would fast to appoint leaders. We see in the Bible, Jesus fasted. John the Baptist lived a fasted lifestyle by eating crickets and honey. Okay, so Paul the Apostle was fasting. We see in the Bible, it's just a practice that those that believe in God, that are waiting, that are asking something from God, they are fasting. So it's not required, but I think it's encouraged.
Yeah, I would say for myself, like before I'd done any fasting, and then I was introduced to it, and I actually tried it out. It kind of opened up a new, it opened up discipline, but it also opened up like focusing on God, like what, like for example, like what my purpose is for fasting. Mm-hmm. And when I started doing it, I started to see results. Like in prayer, it would feel more meaningful, or like I'm reaching out to God more. And I was like, after doing that, it became easier and easier every other time I did it. Mm-hmm. So that's something I noticed. Should I tell someone that I'm fasting?
Well, probably not, right?
Yeah.
The Bible says that when you fast, don't let your hair be unkept or whatever. Mm-hmm. It says to, make yourself look good so that nobody knows you're fasting, right? Fasting is something that we do. It's between us and God, right? So we shouldn't tell people that we're fasting. But if it's like a corporate fast, for a church, or, let's say that the church is saying, hey, everybody, we're going to take some time. We're going to take 3 days. We're all going to fast and pray. So then that's not the issue anymore. But if it's a personal fast, then I would say probably better not to keep it between yourself and God.
Yeah. Sometimes I find myself in those moments where like I'll go to church, and then a friend of mine would be like, hey, do you want to go grab food? And like in that moment, I'm thinking like, what am I supposed to say to them?
I think it's okay if you say, well, I can't, and if they ask more, like, well, I'm fasting right now. The point is you're not going out there and purposefully letting everybody know so that people can think you're spiritual, right?
Yeah,
That's the main purpose behind why Jesus said not to say it. But if you're forced to say it, you have no other choice, right?
Yeah, it's mostly about the motive. That's
right.
That's
exactly
the main idea behind fasting.
And I would say fasting, you have to fast with the right motives. You have to fast with the right intentions, because fasting, it could become a tool to lose weight, right? Mm-hmm. I saw a Christian meme that said, I'm a 3-day fast away from my ideal body weight. So fasting can, people use that to lose weight. And it's a good, like a dietary thing. Yeah, people fast to lose weight. But in the Christian sense, you're not gaining anything from God. God's not going to answer you if your motives are to fast to lose weight, right? That's a selfish motive. So that can't be the reason why we are, fasting is to lose weight or to get into, there's actually there's a ton of physical benefits. If you want, I can get it. Maybe we can get into that later. But it's a very powerful tool that we have. I forgot what your original question was.
Yeah, it was just telling someone like that you're fasting, kind
of.
Right. Just like abstaining from that, making sure you're not actually boasting. And I want to ask you personally, how do you begin and finish your fast?
How do I begin and finish?
Yeah. So like, do you start it off with like prayer or something, or what's your routine look like?
when during a fast, it's not only abstaining from food, right?
Yeah.
That is part of it, but you have to be I've heard it said like this: you can pray without fasting, but you can't fast without praying. Mm-hmm. Meaning, if you're going to be fasting, you're basically calling on God for God to move in your life, right? Mm-hmm. Whether it be to overcome sin, to help with an unsaved loved one, or you have, whatever it is, it's always going to be mixed with prayer, because you're basically calling on God. You're humbling yourself. You're telling yourself no, and you're saying, God, I need you to move on my behalf, right? So fasting you should always have prayer involved. Like, you should always be praying when you're fasting. When, how long, I would say that's between you and God. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I would say definitely that there needs to be prayer involved.
For sure, yeah. And you kind of talked about like the physical benefits of fasting. Mm-hmm. Could you like name off some?
So there's a ton of physical, just a bunch of benefits that people have looked into. This doctors, like not Christian people, just secular doctors and professors that have, there are places where people go to fast, like specifically to fast, and you have doctors monitoring you. I'll just name off a few. And basically what I've heard it said like this: if you could take all the physical benefits of fasting and put it in a pill, and you can sell that pill, you would be a billionaire. Like, I'm not even exaggerating. Fasting has been known to cure cancer, arthritis. It's been known to cure all sorts of diseases, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's. When you fast, you feel better. Mm-hmm. A lot of times, there's a headache that you have in the beginning. You don't feel good in the beginning. You feel very hungry. Once you get past a certain time, it depends how long you're going. After about 3 or 4 days, you start to not feel hungry anymore, mm-hmm. and then you feel good. And fasting has been known to deal with depression, anxiety, all sorts of issues. It's like a cure. I'm serious. If you put it in a pill and sell it, you'd be a billionaire. Not even joking. It's been known to prolong life. They've tested like lab animals. Mm-hmm. All the animals that they've tested, they've all lived longer because of they've put them through fasting. Wow. So there's so much. Obviously, it helps you lose weight. And that's probably the main purpose that a lot of people fast for is to lose weight. And there's a lot. I mean, we can go on for like an hour just talking about the physical
benefits.
The benefits, right? Mm-hmm. If we were to go into that, but I mean, that's not why we fast, right? But it is a plus. So yeah.
Yeah. So I guess you could say there's two sides to fasting for a Christian. It's like you can have discipline and kind of like take care of your body in order to like get more benefits. Because I think when we regard our bodies as like a holy temple, right? Mm-hmm. That's how God describes it. So if we're supposed to take care of our bodies, that means like looking after what we eat and maybe like disciplining ourselves from food for a while. And I think when I've fasted, I've noticed that I had like a lot more energy. I was a lot happier. And I was not as like hungry as I would be. Like I wouldn't snack as much afterwards.
Right.
And so I think there's like that aspect to look at from fasting, and then there's just like the spiritual aspect of fasting. And I think both are beneficial for Christians. But what would you?
Yeah, for sure. And is it okay if I share my testimony? How I started fasting. So I've been doing fasting for about 13 years now. Mm-hmm. And I remember the first time that I started, we had a prayer marathon in our church where we prayed. Every evening we have a time of prayer, and that was a time of my life when I felt very dry spiritually. Mm-hmm. And I really felt like I needed a breakthrough just in the spirit. Like I need God to move in my life. And so I decided to take a 5-day fast. Mind you, I've never fasted for a whole day. Okay, I was the guy that would go to, I would fast for a half a day, and then I'd go to Burger King and buy a triple Whopper, where you got the 3 patties, I would eat that right after my half day of fast. Like, I was not very disciplined. And so I decided I'm going to do a 5-day fast, which is kind of crazy, but I was like, I'm going to do it. Crazy. And during that week, I felt so close to God, right? I felt so close to God. I just felt His presence. And I was like, oh my goodness, I found this like the secret Christian, cure to spiritual drought is a fast. And that week was honestly, it was the week that changed my life. I could honestly say that fasting changed my life. After that week, I've had a fire for God that I don't think I've lost ever since. And so after that, I realized how powerful fasting is. Now, it wasn't always as great as that week was. A lot of people call fasting slowing. Mm-hmm. Because it feels like everything is so slow. Yeah, that's so. And it feels like you're hungry, you're miserable, you're hangry, you have a headache. It's miserable. You feel like, what's the point of this? I'm not getting anything done. And I over the time I've learned that fasting is not. A lot of times fasting is you're in a battle, right? You are in a spiritual battle. And when you are in a battle, you don't feel good. It's hard, right? It's difficult when you're in a battle. When you're fighting, it's not easy. So a lot of times the answer to that you're fasting for, many times comes after you're done fasting. Many times it comes when you're already done. And before I used to get discouraged because I'm like, man, I fasted and I got nothing. I didn't get any answers, and I felt so discouraged. Like, what's the point of this? And then I learned that, you know what? It's a war. It's a battle. I'm just gonna fast, and during the fast, I'm praying. I'm asking for things, and when I'm done fasting, continue to pray. Continue to wait on God, ask for God, and a lot of times the answer comes after the fast, when the fast is done, right? In the Bible, you have Daniel was fasting for 21 days. And after the 21 days, that's where we get our Daniel's fast from, the angel came to him and said, okay, when you started fasting, I was sent to you, but I was stopped by the prince of Persia. Basically, it was a demonic stronghold over the city of Persia. And so his fasting was what enabled the angel to have or to go. That was the reason why he was going, because Daniel was humbling himself. He was fasting and praying. And so the answer came after the 21 days. And why? Because there's a spiritual battle. There's a battle taking place. And sometimes it takes time. Sometimes we don't get the answer right away. But when you're consistent and and you know what? Sometimes you'll start a fast and then you'll quit, right? I've had many times where I've fasted for I decided to take a fast for 3 days and I only did one, or I did a day and a half, or I did half a day and I quit because it was too hard, and that happens too, and that's okay. We're not called to be robots, but what we're called to do is to wait on God, is to stand in the place where we are and to say, God, I really need an answer. I really need you to move in my life. And I would say the greatest benefit of fasting, and I would say the majority of why I fast is to receive spiritual hunger. Mm-hmm. So a lot of times physical hunger actually creates spiritual hunger. When you deny yourself, right, deny your flesh, it gives you an awareness of the spiritual world that you wouldn't have without it, right? And so a lot of times physical hunger actually creates spiritual hunger inside of us. So I would say to anybody that wants to have more hunger for God, fasting is where it starts. Honestly, that's where it starts, and that's a lifestyle. Now I'm doing it once a week, God willing, and I'm seeing the benefit of this kind of a lifestyle where you live in this dependency on God. So I don't know. That's just my personal testimony. I've seen a lot of changes in my life because of fasting. That's why I'm pretty passionate about this subject.
Yeah.
So
I could tell. I'm glad you came on here. Is there anything you want to finish with, to conclude the fasting?
I would say, when you have to be careful also when you fast. Mm-hmm. That's maybe we don't have enough time for that, but when you fast, it could be dangerous, right? If you go too long. So generally a rule is if you do 3-day fast, it takes you 3 days to get out of the fast. That's what I've heard. You start with lighter food, like salads, soups, yogurt, that kind of stuff. I would just say be careful when you're fasting. If you're doing it for a long time, like 5 days and more. Remember the first five-day fast that I did? I ate 2 big burritos after that. That was a mistake.
No,
that was a mistake.
Are you serious?
That was
Bro.
bad. And even I did when I did my 20-day fast, I had pilmeni a week later. No, listen, a week later, and I felt really, really bad. Like I thought I was gonna go to. My wife was like, maybe we should take you to the hospital. It was bad. So you have to be careful, especially if you're going longer. Obviously, if you have, there's people with medical reasons that cannot fast. So you have to kind of, feel how your body's reacting when you're fasting. It's going to be difficult. You're going to have a headache, but and you can push through it. But there are medical, like if somebody's pregnant mothers, like my wife can't be fasting right now because she's pregnant.
Yeah.
But you just have to be careful. There's a lot I can say, but I think we should probably wrap it up, huh?
Yeah, wrap it up. Dennis, thank you so much for coming on. This is actually so interesting to listen to. And thank you guys for watching. And so glad you guys could tune in. Check out our other videos. We just released our recap, and it was pretty good. So thank you.